right, we are going to continue testing our save new password function. But to be honest, I just don't really love the way that I'm using await and then kind of using promise here. I think it's a mess and I want to clean it up beforehand. We got lucky that we're passing this test, but I just feel like it's going to be problematic if we don't fix some of these concerns. So here's what we're going to do instead. We are going to create a try and then a catch block. All right, and then we can go ahead and put our logic in here. So we're going to say const payload. Oops. Sorry, my notifications on my phone were still on. Await this.jwt service.verify async, and then we are going to pass in all of this that we passed in. Okay. We don't really actually need this payload because we're not going to do anything with it. So we can get rid of it or we can just kind of not worry about it. But it's going to be mad at us that it's never read. So I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of it. All right. And then here you can see this is what we want to do if it works. So I'm going to go ahead and add that to my try block. Okay. So we're going to get our hashed password. We are going to update the password, and then we are going to return the user service create user. Okay. Something that I kind of was looking at though in between videos is that I'm returning the whole user. And so I opened up my auth controller and I'm also just returning what passes back. And that's a little concerning to me because that means that I'm going to be passing back the entire user object to the front end. So I actually don't want to do that because we don't need to be passing back any data about the password. So we're going to say const updated user is equal to await create user. And then we are going to return, let's do name. I'm going to go actually and look at get profile data here and see what we return. So we return email is going to be updated user.email. Name is going to be updated user.name, and then we're going to have username is going to be updated user.username. Okay, so that way we are not returning the password. I'm then going to go actually look at what my user entity looks like as well. So we have name, email, username, password, and then projects. So I'm then going to look at whether or not the projects need to be sent with it. So if you look at our user service, we're doing create user and we're saving the user and then sending it back with the sign up DTO. So we shouldn't actually be needing to send the projects back, but because we're only sending this back here, we should go check the front end then to make sure that this is what we want to send back to the front end and that we're not messing up anything. So I'm going to go ahead and close my API. I'm going to go to my front end and I'm going to try to hunt down where that is. So reset password is going to be, yep, save new password. And then if you can see, we're actually not using the response at all. So we should be fine with just sending back this, okay? Technically, we don't need to send back anything. We could just send back success, but we'll keep that kind of to keep the standard. Okay, so then in our catch block, we want to, I actually don't need to put the error there because we're not doing anything with the error, but we can throw new unauthorized error. Okay, so now we don't need all of this the way it works, so we can save it. And let's run our test to make sure that we didn't break anything when we updated this. And we didn't. Our save new password still throws an unauthorized error when the token is invalid. So that is awesome. Let's go ahead and I'm actually going to copy this test here because we now need to do the use case of the token is valid. what happens. All right, so it should return, it returns the user email, name, and username after updating the user password. Okay, so let's kind of go through what we have here and edit as we need. So new password, fake new password, ID, and token. But let's change this from fake token to valid token. Just for readability's sake, it doesn't really matter because it's also not a valid token. All right, so then we have const user. Okay, so let's follow the logic here. So we're not worrying about the catch at this point. So we are going to get our user, so that's going to be this, right? And then we are going to try to verify that it works. And then if it verifies that it works, we are going to do this, okay? So we need to look at that. So then the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to hash the password, okay? So let's go ahead and do const hashed password. And then we're going to do hashed fake new password, okay? So that's the next thing that we're getting out of this, okay? And then we're updating the password, and then we are going to be getting an updated user, so we need that. So I'm going to copy my user object here, and I'm going to change this from user to updated user. And instead of this, I'm actually going to change this to hashed password. Okay, so that should be good in terms of everything. So then we need to go through and do all of our mocking. Okay, so when we first were to call the user service, find user by ID, and then we're going to return user. That's perfect. Okay, next we're going to call verify async, but we're not going to reject it. We're going to mock resolved value. And I'm just going to put an empty object that's going to represent our payload, but because we're not using our payload, it does not matter, okay? The next thing that we need to mock is what's the bcrypt hash. So I'm going to actually scroll up to my hash password up here, and I'm going to grab this. All right. So that way I can mock it. All right. So we're going to return the hashed password up here, so that works. And then the next thing that we need to mock is users service.create user, and we need to mock the resolved value, which is going to be updated user. Okay. Now we're not going to be catching an error, so we can get rid of all of this. Okay, and we don't need to do the try block because it's going to work. So instead, we are going to say const result is equal to await service.new or service save new password, and then pass in our new password ID and token. And then we expect that our result is going to equal an object, okay, where email is going to be equal to updated user.email. Name is going to be equal to updated user.name, and username is going to be equal to updated user.username. Okay, let's run our tests and see how things go. Perfect, and we passed the test. So now we can add our other expect statements here about all of our calls. All right, so we expect users service dot find user by ID to have been called. We expect user service dot find user by ID to have been called with, and then let's take a look. The ID, so we can just put in ID there. All right, so now let's go ahead and run our test, make sure that passes before we move on. It does. Okay, so then we can continue. So we expect the JWT service dot verify async to have been called, and we expect the JWT service dot verify async to have been called with, and then let's take a look. we're calling it with this token and secret user.password. All right, let's go ahead and run that and make sure that that works. Oops, and we failed. All right. Oh, because we expected hashed fake new password. I feel like something's getting changed, but we gave hashed fake password. So this is hashed fake password. Interesting. I think it's because we're creating the user down here. And we're actually changing the user password here. So we need to, let me see if adding once here will fix that problem. And it does not. Okay, so we're going to undo the once, and then I am actually going to put, I'm going to hard code user.password, so we expect it to be called with this. All right, let's run the test. Perfect. All right. So yeah, I think it's like because we're actually saying user.password is changing, then it's kind of getting, this user object is getting updated during the time, and then when we're calling it here, we can't use it. So we just have to sub in the actual hashed fake password. All right. Next, we expect users service.createUser to have been called. And we expect users service.createUser to have been called with, and that would be user. Except I'm curious if that's going to get messed up too, because it's going to be user getting edited. Oh, okay. These tests are kind of weird sometimes. All right, so now we have our save new password finished up, and we will call it here, and then we'll move on to delete user and testing that functionality in the next video. See you in a bit.